Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, let's sit here. We'll do the talking. We'll do the talking first, and then we'll go on to checking our sugar, blood pressure, BMI check, and ultimately we'll have doctor's consult at the end. It's going to be actually a very good program, inshallah. But we got to start proper way. Let's sit down here. Let's talk about few things. And then we go on to check our vitals, inshallah. All right? Let's come back, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, 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 yeah. Brothers, let's come forward here in the front. We'll start the presentation, inshallah. Please, come forward, come this way. Yeah, you can. Okay. Yeah, let me just do the introduction.
She works at CareWell Health. I'll introduce her. Why don't you just introduce me and I'll introduce all my colleagues.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let's come forward, brothers, here. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. Alhamdulillah, Muslims have been fasting, celebrating the month of Ramadan, month of the Quran, for last 23 days. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fasting. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all the effort we are making to please Him. So today is such a program where we are trying to educate this community about our health, about our well-being. See, the spiritual health and physical health, they go together. If we eat properly, take care of our health properly, we would not have that many chairs here where brothers would be sitting and praying. If someone has absolutely problem with making sujood, doing ruku, it's not a problem. We do it. But we try to take care of ourselves so that we don't have to go to the point we won't be able to make sajda for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we know, Islam teaches us what point we can come closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Sajda. That's the closest point we come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you are praying. So overall, what we are trying to do, educate ourselves about our health, how to prevent some of the very devastating diseases we have around, namely diabetes, high blood pressure, and the diseases that come from these diseases, which are devastating. So we're going to talk about it, inshallah. And as you know, Islam always about preventative. Islam encourages us to be preventive, and it teaches us to be preventive, and prevention is better than cure. Prevention is better than cure. Prevention is better than treatment. Okay, we'll discuss on this more, inshallah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a hadith, authentic hadith, take advantage of 5 before 5. Take advantage of 5 before 5. We have the flyers there, and that hadith was there. Number 1 is take advantage of your youth before you become old. Before you become old, take advantage of your youth. Take advantage of your health before you become ill. Take advantage of your health before you become ill, right? Take advantage of your wealth before you become poor. Take advantage of your life before we die. Okay, 5 things before 5 we take advantage of it. So one of the things is taking care of health. Take advantage of health before we become ill. So that's the theme of this program, inshallah, today. We are honored to have our sister Gauri, her husband, and we have other sister who is going to help us out, brother Umair, who is a dental hygienist. He's going to help us with the stuffs, inshallah. Dr. Gauri is the medical director of formerly known as East Orange General Hospital. Their management has been changed, and it's now CareWell Health. CareWell Health. So when the management changes, the care improves. That's what we are expecting, inshallah. I think that's one of the things they are trying to also educate the community, that maybe the East Orange General is not East Orange General anymore. It's now CareWell Health, better care, better treatment, and all of those. Inshallah, she's going to go over details on that, inshallah. So this is the program as such. We're going to hear from Dr. Gauri, her presentation on diabetes, on high blood pressure, and then we're going to have some more information from me, inshallah, on that, and that we're going to finally have everybody check their blood pressure, their sugar, and we're going to check the BMI. These 3 are very important things. When you go to hospital, they check you these few things first before they do anything. So blood pressure check, sugar, and then your BMI, and then free consult with a medical doctor, right? Medical doctor, medical director. She's going to give you a consult on based on the findings we have on each one of you, inshallah. So this is how we're going to end the program, inshallah. I hope this program is going to open up our eyes of the lifestyle we maintain, the food we eat, and what is good for us, what is bad for us. Eventually, we educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Okay? Just to give you some teaser, this country spent $360 billion on diabetes by itself. This country we live in spent $360 billion on diabetes care by itself. So to some of us, you may say, yeah, it's a lot of money. So what are we trying to say? I'm trying to give you similarities. There are countries in the world where their national budget is not $300 billion. It's not. I'll give you an example of Bangladesh, where you have 130 million Muslims live in Bangladesh. Their national spending budget is $60 billion. $60 billion, where in this country we are spending $360 billion just to take care of diabetes. 1 out of 5 citizens in this country are obese. 1 out of 5 citizens in this country obese. You can say, so what? That means when someone is obese, that easily leads someone to become diabetic, high blood pressure, and then stroke, and so on and so forth. So it's not an easy matter. The food we eat, if we are not watching, the life we are maintaining, lifestyle, if we are not doing properly, then we could be the victim of stroke, may Allah save us, and other diseases. So we are going to turn to Dr. Gauri. She is going to give us details of the diseases and the progress of these diseases, comorbidity, and also, all the whatever is related with this high blood pressure, diabetes, so on and so forth. So inshallah, I turn the mic to Dr. Gauri.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm so honored to be here with all of you today. Happy Ramadan, Ramadan Mubarak, and may Allah accept all our prayers and our ibadah this year, and inshallah allow us to find Laylatul Qadr in these remaining 10 days of the month. So thank you so much, Brother Yusuf, Abu Yusuf, for introducing me, and to all of you for inviting me and my family and my colleagues here today to share with you a little bit about healthy living and also tell you about CareWell Health Medical Center. So as Brother Abu Yusuf said, my name is Dr. Hina Ghori. I am the director of the emergency department at CareWell Health Medical Center, which is literally like about three miles away from this beautiful masjid. I've been at CareWell Health Medical Center for the past 2 years, and it was previously known as East Orange General Hospital. Earlier this January, the name changed. Partially, there was a change in leadership as well. And what I love about this hospital is that there's a lot of efforts that goes in to outreach to the community. Sister Kier, Miss Kier Kaiser here, is part of the community outreach department at CareWell Health. She also works with business development at the hospital. And for me, it was really important to reach out to the Muslim community here as well, which is how I reached out to Ms. Kier, and we kind of met with Brother Isa a couple of months ago, and then the idea for this health fair came to be. My husband Amir is here as well. He's Dr. Amir Rahman, although he's a doctor of education, so don't ask him any medical questions if you know what's good for you. Also here is young Adam Osman. Adam is a scribe. He works with me in the emergency department, and inshallah, he hopes to go to medical school someday soon. So please keep him in your prayers. And also here is Dr. Omer Ghori, who is a dentist and currently works as a dental hygienist in New York City, and he's my cousin. So let's talk a little bit about two things, high blood pressure and diabetes. And the reason we picked these two topics to focus on today is because both of them, can be very difficult to diagnose unless you actually go and get yourself checked out. Especially high blood pressure, it's been called the silent killer, sadly. And high blood pressure is especially prevalent in individuals of African descent, as well as individuals of South Asian descent. And I know in this masjid, mashallah, we have both of those communities, especially individuals of African descent. So it is really important to talk about this. The other risk factors for elevated blood pressure include older age, being overweight or obese, a family history. So if you have a relative with a high blood pressure, unfortunately, you have a higher risk of getting that. If you have a diet that's high in salt, and if you drink a lot of alcohol, although inshallah, I'm sure, in this community, that's not as applicable, although it might be. And for those individuals who are not very active. So it's important to cap this at the back of your mind. But before we talk a little bit more about, how to diagnose it, how to treat it, let's talk a little bit about what high blood pressure really means. right? Often patients will come to the ED and I'll say, do you have high blood pressure? Like, no, I don't have high blood pressure, but I do have hypertension. So high blood pressure, hypertension is the same thing. And basically it means that the pressure inside your blood vessels is higher than it's supposed to be. And usually when you get your blood pressure checked, your doctor will give you two numbers. So they may say, Ms. Pierre, your blood pressure today is 130/80. So those are two numbers. The first number, we call that the systolic blood pressure. So that's the blood pressure in your arteries when your heart is contracting. So when your heart is squeezing blood into the blood vessels, the blood pressure is a little higher, and that's the first number. And that number, we want it to be less than 130. So if your systolic blood pressure, the number on top, is above 130, you have high blood pressure. The number below, the second number, is the diastolic blood pressure. So that's the blood pressure that is in your blood vessels when your heart is relaxing. So, right, our heart beats, then relaxes, beats, then relaxes. So if your blood pressure is squeezing, your heart is squeezing, your blood pressure should be not more than 129. When it's relaxing, your blood pressure should not be any more than 80, or actually 79. Okay, so those are the two numbers you have to think about. When you talk about high blood pressure, if your blood pressure is above the first number, if it's greater than 130 to 139, we say that's stage 1 hypertension. And the second number has to be between 80 to 89. And it used to be about 15, 20 years ago, that number was lower. Like we were tolerating a blood pressure that was up to 140. But recently we found, when you look at patients and what kind of complications they get, we found that even a blood pressure that's between 130 and 139 leads to a lot of complications. So that's why now we've started being a lot more aggressive and treating blood pressure that's even lower. And the second number, again, as I said, it has to be less than 80. If it's 80 to 89, that's stage 1. If it's above 90, that's stage 2 high blood pressure, okay? So why do we worry about this? What are the complications? And this is where I said high blood pressure, unfortunately, is a silent killer, because I get so many patients in the emergency department. They are maybe late 30s, late 40s, and they're coming in because they're having belly pain, so something completely unrelated. And it turns out that their blood pressure is 200/90. And I check their blood work, and already they're in the early stages of kidney failure. So that's one of the symptoms, or unfortunately the complications. So if you think about really what's happening in your body, if your organs are getting too much blood, the blood vessels are under constantly a lot of pressure, that leads to damage, ongoing damage to your organs. And the main organs we think about are our brain, our heart, our eyes, our kidneys. Okay, so those are the four main organs, but pretty much it'll affect every organ of the body. So let's talk about specifically what those symptoms are going to be. What are those side effects? Okay. So can somebody tell me, if you have damage to the brain from high blood pressure, what can that look like? Any ideas? How about you over there? I'm going to call on people. Oh, but your breath. Go ahead, brother. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Headaches. It can give you headaches if your blood pressure is very high. Over time, it can affect your vision, but that's more long-term, because it'll actually damage the retina, the small arteries of the eye, and it'll cause blindness. What else? Anything else in terms of brain injury? What's the big thing we worry about? Stroke, right. So what is a stroke? A stroke basically is the blood vessels of the brain can get damaged. They can either rupture, so you can have a bleed in the brain because of high blood pressure, or over time, the blood vessels will be damaged, and so they develop blood clots. And so a part of your brain will not get enough oxygen. And that we call, it's a brain attack. Similar to a heart attack, you can get an attack of the brain, whereas a part of your brain isn't getting enough oxygen. What are the symptoms of a stroke? Any difficulty speaking, any difficulty moving a part of your body or legs, difficulty walking. Think about a stroke. I want you to show up to to call 911. That's where you don't wait. You don't drive to the ER. You call 911, okay? And that, again, is a complication of a high blood pressure that we want to avoid. So let's talk about now the heart. So obviously, the main thing we think about when damage of the heart is a heart attack. So if part of the heart isn't getting enough oxygen, the heart muscle will die. And the early symptoms of that ongoing damage to the heart muscle will be chest pain. So especially if you have a history of high blood pressure, you're older in age, you have a family history of heart disease, if you're having chest pain, that is something very serious. And you want to be calling 911 and don't ignore that. We talked about damage to the eye over time. That's something also we want to avoid. And over time, also, you can get damage to the kidney, as I mentioned. It's actually one of the most common causes of needing to go into dialysis. So as I mentioned, those young people who I see in the ED, unfortunately, very commonly, where their blood pressure has been 200 over time, over a long time, and they now will need to go on dialysis. So that's another reason why it's important to manage the high blood pressure. So what can you do, right? All of this sounds really depressing. It's all dangerous. What are we going to do about it? Just get screened. And this is why today is so important. It's an opportunity for all of you to just get your blood pressure checked. And the recommendations are for if you're over 40 years of age, at least once a year to get your blood pressure checked. And when you're older than 40, say you're 50, you're going to get also more routinely, especially if your doctor says your blood pressure is borderline. There's something called white coat hypertension, meaning when patients go and they see a doctor in a white coat. This is why I didn't wear my white coat today. When patients see doctors with white coats, we get a little nervous, and that nervousness can make your blood pressure seem higher. So when we're checking your blood pressure today, I want you to take that number with a grain of salt, because it could be that you're nervous, you're stressed out, and your blood pressure reading might be high today. So that's why we don't treat a one-time elevated blood pressure. We're going to have a form where we'll be writing down your blood pressure. If your blood pressure is higher than, what's the number we're looking for? 130 over 80. If it's higher than that, I don't want you to get upset and say, I have high blood pressure. I want you to get it repeated in 1 to 2 weeks. And then if your blood pressure is consistently high, that's when your doctor will start you on medications. Yes? So fasting, we're all kind of on low-level dehydration these days, right? We're not drinking enough water. So that's really what can impact it. If you're dehydrated, your blood pressure will be a little low. So that's a good point. Today, maybe your blood pressure will be low and you may still have a history of high blood pressure. So just a one-time reading today doesn't mean you don't have high blood pressure. And as I mentioned, Ms. Kier is here today. She has some great literature about CareWell Health Hospital and our clinics. So if you have a primary care doctor, I want you to follow up with your PMD. But if you don't have one, take the literature from us today and we'll give you some information on how to get a primary care doctor. So again, we're going to check your blood pressure today. If it's high, get it repeated. And then what will your doctor do if it's confirmed that you have high blood pressure? Do you have a question back there, brother? Mm-hmm. Sure. So a mini stroke, yeah, absolutely. So when I mentioned that, there's two types of strokes. One stroke is you have a bleed in the brain. The other type of stroke is that your blood vessels of the brain can have a clot in them. And that clot can sometimes come and go. Like imagine a blood clot, right? When you get a wound, it can be tiny, it can break off. So a mini stroke is when there's a blockage in the artery of the brain. So it gives you stuttering symptoms. Like maybe you might wake up one day and God forbid, you can't move your arm for an hour, but then after that, you're fine again. God forbid, Allah protect all of us. If that happens to you, I still want you to show up, end up in the emergency department immediately, because that's never normal. It means that you probably had a mini stroke. There was a blockage in the artery that was supplying your brain, but that blockage got removed, but you're still at risk for getting a stroke down the line. Okay. Any other questions about what we've talked about? Yes. 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 No, that's a very good question. That's not a stroke. So that's basically, that's the nerve that supplies your arm. When we go to sleep, if you're pressing on that nerve will go to sleep temporarily. So when you have any weakness in any part of your body, there's usually, two main causes, either a problem with the brain, which controls all the nerves in the body, or it's a problem downstream from the brain, which is the nerves. So what you're describing is a problem with the nerve. And you know that because you probably were sleeping with an outstretched arm, and then you shake your arm. After a few minutes, it gets better. So if you experience that after a few minutes, you're fine, it's not a stroke. But if it's lasting more than, I would say, 10 minutes, think about a stroke. And also, this is why it's important for you to know what your health status is, right? If you saw a doctor recently, they checked your blood pressure, you don't have diabetes, you live a healthy life, generally you're a healthy person, it's less likely you're going to have a stroke. But it's also important to think about your family history. If you have an aunt who had a stroke in her 40s, that means you had a higher risk. So it's important for us to have an idea of all of those things. Yes. Yes. So you want your pee to be as clear, as light as possible, like water. So because your urine is a really good way to check your hydration status, how well hydrated you are. And we all want to be drinking at least 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. And if you're not drinking that much water, your body will hold on to the water, and it'll, you'll urinate less water. So your urine will be more concentrated, which makes it more yellow. If you're well hydrated, you're going to be able to pee a lot of that water out, and your urine will be lighter. So if you're noticing, and I bet all of us will be noticing, in Ramadan, your urine's going to be really dark, just make sure after iftar, at suhoor, you're drinking a lot of water. Yes, it's not possible. It shouldn't affect your high blood pressure. As I said, it can make you dehydrated, which will lower your blood pressure. But in general, it's important for you to stay well hydrated. Keep a water bottle with you when you're not fasting. I work in the ED. It's really hard to get any time to eat and drink, as Adam will tell you. He works with me there. But we just keep a water bottle with you and try to drink as much as possible. It's important to, as Brother Abu Yusuf was saying, it's important for us to prioritize our health. And if you know how the actions that you do affect your body, it'll inshallah remind you to get better care of yourself. So moving on, let's talk a little bit more about what can you do if you have high blood pressure, right? Your doctor told you, it's confirmed. Are there things that you can do to now impact that? If you have stage 1 high blood pressure, meaning it's milder, just between 130 to 139 or 80 to 89, there are some great steps that you can take rather than just taking medications, okay? And then Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has told us that, it's okay to take medications, right? If you're sick, medications are really part of you practicing your Islam because you're taking care of your body. But with high blood pressure, if it's very mild, it's okay if your doctor recommends it to start with dietary and lifestyle modifications, which means eating a healthy diet. So remember I mentioned that if you have a diet high in salt, that can make your blood pressure go up because your body will hold on to a lot of water. Because it has a lot of salt, your blood is going to be really concentrated, it's going to hold on to water, that's going to make your blood pressure go up. So we want you to eat a low salt diet. And generally, when you look at the back of the food that you're eating, we want you to it'll tell you how much sodium is in there. You want to be eating less than 200 milligrams of salt a day. Okay. And other things you can do is eat a diet full of fruits and vegetables. Eat less processed food. So even those halal hot dogs, they may be halal, but they're going to have a lot of chemicals. They're going to be processed. They're going to have a lot of salt. It's really best to stay away from that. Any of those cured meats. Yes. Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me just make sure. Is it 2,000? I'm going to tell you the right number. So 24, ideally, yes, you're right. So less than even 1,500 milligrams. So 2 grams or 1.5 grams or 1,500 milligrams. Thank you. Also, similar to that, the salt, you also want to eat a high potassium diet. That's going to help with your high blood pressure, as well as help in general keep you healthy. And there the number is 3,500 milligrams to 5,000 milligrams daily. Okay? So those are the things about in terms of diet that you can do. Stop smoking. If you're a smoker, stopping smoking will actually help your blood pressure, not to mention it's going to protect your heart and your brain. Okay? Also, if you're overweight, losing weight. And again, today we'll measure our weight. And even if you're overweight or obese, trying to lose that weight will help you lower your blood pressure. Exercise. So how much exercise is recommended? What's a good number of amount to exercise on a daily basis? Any idea? Half an hour? How often? Yeah, absolutely, exactly. But you know what? Something is better than nothing. So if you're at 0 right now, right? You sit at work all day, you drive home. When you come home, you sit in front of the TV and watch your shows. It may be hard to go directly to 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes ideally, at least 5 times a day, ideally 5 days a week, preferably 7 days a week, but take baby steps. With all of the things that I'm talking about, if you try to go from 0 to 100 in a day, you go home today and say, I'm going to do all of those things, it's much harder to do, much easier to fail. But if you pick a couple of things, have very concrete goals, and say, okay, take one thing home today and say, all right, I'm just going to start by walking 10 minutes every day. And then take a logbook, take a notebook, keep track of what you're doing. Next week, you say, wow, alhamdulillah, I walked 10 minutes every day. Now I'm going to increase it to 15 minutes every day. Also, if you do 10 minutes spread out during the day, 3-4 times a day, that's the same as walking 30 minutes. So don't think that, a lot of us have very busy work hours. Moms have, kids at home. It's not easy to say, I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk. Not everybody has that luxury. But if you say for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to walk down these stairs, and then I'm going to do that 4 or 5 times a day, that in itself is very, very beneficial. All right. Any questions with high blood pressure there? Yeah, so the sleep in general definitely has an impact. Interestingly, more so of an impact on your risk of diabetes. So sleeping more than 8 hours a day is recommended. So, and again, it's all, if you're living a comfortable life and it decreases your stress level. Stress also has an impact on your high blood pressure. So if you're able to sleep fully, inshallah, that will definitely have an impact on your blood pressure as well. So just for the sake of time, I want to make sure that we get through all the material. Now let's talk a little bit about diabetes, okay? So what is diabetes? So first of all, glucose is an important nutrient in our body, and all our cells need glucose to create energy. And when a person has diabetes, our cells are unable to use that glucose in a positive manner. There are 2 types of diabetes. The first is called type 1 diabetes. A patient who has type 1 diabetes has almost no insulin in their body, because the pancreas, which is an organ inside our body that makes insulin, in those individuals is dysfunctional. So type 1 diabetes is actually very rare. Only 10% of the population who has diabetes will have type 1 diabetes. So the focus of what I'm going to be talking about in the next 10 minutes will be type 2 diabetes, because most of us will really be dealing with that in our lifetime. So as I said, type 1 diabetes means that you don't have any insulin in your body because your pancreas is not working. Type 2 diabetes is when you have a wealth of insulin in your body, but your cells are immune to that. So your cells will see the insulin and they'll just ignore it because the receptors are not working. And often diabetes will be associated with people who are overweight, because when you get overweight, it basically makes your cells a little bit more resistant to the insulin. Other risk factors are genetics. So again, as I said, with high blood pressure, similar to high blood pressure, if you have a family history of a person with type 2 diabetes, you're more likely to get it. And as I said, being overweight, Some women who are pregnant can get diabetes during pregnancy. That's called gestational diabetes. And if you have gestational diabetes, you're more likely to get diabetes later on in your life as well. So what are the symptoms of diabetes? Say you don't know you have diabetes. What are the symptoms to look out for? Any ideas? Yes. Okay, fatigue, especially because being diabetic, if it's uncontrolled, will make you dehydrated. So that can make you fatigued. What else? Sorry? Lightheaded again, because you're going to be dehydrated. Constant urination, right? So that's the key thing, actually. Both of you are totally correct, but the frequent urination, we call it polydipsia and polyphagia. You get hungry a lot because the food that you're eating, it's turning into glucose, but then you're peeing it out because your cells, you're not able to use the insulin adequately, so your cells are not able to use it for energy. So if you're noticing any of those symptoms, that's a warning sign. But unfortunately, similar to high blood pressure, most of the time, people don't know that they have diabetes because their symptoms may be mild or it may be early. So you may be living with an elevated glucose, but it's not high enough to give you those drastic symptoms. So this is also something why it's important for all of us, really, especially if you're older than 35, 40 years of age, to have a primary care doctor, to see a doctor at least once a year for a checkup. And similar to high blood pressure, pretty much all of the complications that you can get from untreated high blood pressure, you have with diabetes as well. You have an increased risk of strokes, and now we all know what a stroke is, what symptoms of strokes are. Similar to high blood pressure, it can give you a heart attack, but there's some more, and it can cause kidney failure. Can cause eye damage because the high glucose that your blood vessels are going to be bathed in all the time, it's toxic to your blood vessels. So it can cause blindness. It can also cause damage to the nerves of your legs and your hands. So it can cause long-term tingling, pain in your hands and legs. We call that diabetic neuropathy. And then one of the most terrifying symptoms, I think, effects is that it can cause you to get ulcers in your legs, leading to the need to get amputation, right? We have to cut off the fingers and their legs. And again, it's very unfortunate. It's something that really in our country, with all the resources, with our medical budget, it should not be something that goes undiagnosed, goes untreated. But I can't tell you how often I see people, young individuals in my ER, in our hospital, who have amputations because they just, they weren't diagnosed, they weren't treated early enough. So let's talk about diagnosis. And again, today, inshallah, my colleagues, my friends today will be able to check your glucose. And we are all very lucky because we're fasting. It's a really good time to check, to screen you for diabetes. So a fasting blood glucose, we want it to be less than 100, okay? So if today your glucose is 100 or above, that could mean that you are at risk for diabetes. But if your glucose is greater than 126 today, it's very likely that you have diabetes. Again, I don't want anybody freaking out today and saying your life is over. Inshallah, it's not that. And also, anything that we do today, I want to make sure that you follow up with your primary care doctor, get it repeated. But it is very possible, especially if you're fasting today, if your glucose is above 100, that you are pre-diabetic, you're at risk for getting diabetes, and if it's greater than 126, certainly possible that you could have diabetes. If you happen not to be fasting today for whatever reason, all of us have reasons that we cannot fast on certain days. If you're sick, in that case, you can still tell if you have diabetes if the random blood sugar is greater than 200. Okay, so if you're not fasting today and the glucose is greater than 200, that's suggestive of being diabetic. Sorry? Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dr. Gori is about to go deep in details about diabetes. It's very, very important to educate ourselves. But I want to give some teaser here. The leading cause of kidney failure is diabetes, right, Dr. Gori? Leading cause of kidney failure is diabetes, right? You may say you are rich, you'd be able to buy a kidney from outside. Think twice. And the rarity of it. Do you know, just to give some idea, do you know how much it takes to transplant a kidney if you find it? If you find it, how much it costs to transplant a kidney? Any idea? About $250,000. $250,000. Let me give you more teaser. If someone, we have seen people losing their liver failure. Any idea how much it costs to transplant liver? $400,000. If it is found, $400,000. Any idea about transplanting a cornea, the outer layer of the eye? Any idea? $20,000. Subhanallah. Month of Ramadan, we are worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much favor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in our body. If your kidney is working, $300,000 right there. If your liver is functioning, $400,000 right there. If you're seeing good, your cornea, it's the cornea only. I'm not talking about the inner eye. The cornea itself, $20,000. Look at our body, how much favor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in our body. And He said, rightly correct, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. What are the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we're going to deny? So I'll let
Those reminders. So I'll just take about 5-10 minutes. Yes, Kier, did you want to add something?
That's a great perspective that he just gave on, the cost of healthcare when we don't take care of ourselves.
So let's go back to talking about diet, not to make anybody hungry. I know we are all very vulnerable right now, so I won't go into too much details about types of meals, but it is extremely important for really all of us to be eating a healthy diet, but especially if you have been told that you're pre-diabetic or you're diabetic. As I had said earlier, similar to high blood pressure, we want to be eating a low-salt diet, and so the number is 2,400 or, 24 to 1,500 milligrams of salt a day. Nobody's going to remember that number, okay? That's fine. If you are diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes, there's a lot of literature. I have a handout here today as well that you can take home. So if you are diagnosed, you can put that number up on your fridge, but just be conscious of what we're eating. You want to be eating a diet that's high in fiber. A lot of breakfast cereals actually are a great source of fiber in your diet, but also fruits and vegetables, celery are excellent. Really eating any fresh fruits and vegetables, much better than drinking juice, because the juice only has the sugar from the fruits and vegetables and none of that fiber. But if you're eating raw fruits and vegetables, that's a really great source of fiber, great to protect you from developing diabetes and if you have high blood pressure. Eating a diet that has a lot of fish in it and less red meat, also again, very good. Avoiding excessive caffeine. I need my 2 cups of chai a day, cannot do without them, but really actually up to 2 is fine. So even if it's coffee, 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day or tea a day, it's okay, but don't drink too much more than that. And all of you youngsters out there, all monster drinks, really that has a lot of caffeine, so try to avoid. Adam, I see you. So those monster drinks and Mountain Dew, those sodas really have a lot of caffeine. And also it's important to eat fruits with lots of, food with beans, peas, lentils, nuts, walnuts, all of those things. Let me wrap up by just talking a little bit more about exercising, okay? As I said earlier, it's important to exercise. You're exercising ideally every day, at least 30 minutes. It's okay to break it up, 10 minutes a day, for at least 3-4 times. And when you're doing exercise, it's important to do 3 types of exercises. So the first is aerobic exercise. So that's exercise which actually brings your heart rate up. So if you feel your heart rate going up, that's the right kind of exercise. It's aerobic exercise. It's also important to lift some weights, some level of weight. So it can be picking up, some heavy books, or if you can buy weights, a jug of water, a jug of milk, that's a gallon of water. That's important as well, to do at least 8 to 10 reps a day for each muscle type. So forearms, triceps, legs. And then finally, to do a little bit of stretching and yoga. That's important to keep your muscles limber and well stretched out. So those are the main things I wanted to talk about today. Thank you so much for your time. And now what we'll do, I know we've already started doing it for some of our friends today. We're going to be checking your blood pressure. I have a form there, so I want everybody to be able to have that paper that'll have your blood pressure written down. We'll put your weight, your height, your body mass index, which tells you if you're overweight or obese. And then it also will put your glucose on there. And if any of you have a number that's abnormal today, I'm here and I'm happy to answer any questions that you'll have. All right, so any other questions right now before we finish? All right, thank you so much everyone for your time. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Since I got you here, inshallah, I want to share some more stuffs related to the Ramadan, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba alal ladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed for us Ramadan. If you go to Dr. Gauri, she's going to prescribe you medication for the problem you have. Prescription, kutiba alaykumus siyam. Siyam, fasting, is prescribed for you, as it was prescribed for the people before you. So it's not a new thing for a human being, right? Prescription. What's the purpose? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Perhaps you become muttaqi. You become fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the whole purpose of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Ramadan for us so that we can become muttaqi. What's the advantage of become muttaqi? Become healthy. Because if we become muttaqi, we're going to fast 3 days a month, which is scientifically proven in medical society. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam already told us, fast on the Yawm al-Bid, right? 3 days a month. On when the moonlight up there, full moon, you fast 3 days, sunnah. Also fast Mondays and Thursdays, right? Healthy food, eat 1/3 of what you can eat, 1/3 of your stomach. All these concerning our health, our wealth, is nicely given in Islam. So we have really everything we need to have in order to be healthy. In order to be healthy. Just put this into perspective. As I mentioned, $360 billion this country spent on diabetes by itself. Just for the diabetes. About $60 billion it spends on obesity. 1 in every 5 people in this country are obese. So what all of this telling us? Is telling us the country we are living in. Matter of fact, it's not only United States, it's throughout the world. It's a global issue now. Diabetes, obesity is a global issue. And we don't know what to do. I mean, the people don't know what to do. Luckily, as Muslims, if we practice Islam the way it's supposed to be practiced, if we go 1/3 of my stomach, I will be healthier. It's very difficult, but I will be healthier. If we fast Mondays and Thursdays, I will be slimmer, healthier. Sugar is not going to come to me. Obesity is not going to even come to me if I fast this pattern. Keep up with my 1/3 of the food. So these all are healthy stuffs. We need to bring it back into our lifestyle. If you go to Dr. Gori with high sugar, for example, your sugar is 120, for example, she's going to say, I can read her mind. She's going to say, brother, you have to change your lifestyle. This is the first thing. No medication yet. First thing she's going to say, you have to change your lifestyle. What is lifestyle? The eating pattern. What are you eating? Watch it. Huh? If you are exercising, go on to some routine exercise program. This is changing of lifestyle. If we are going to sit on our sofa and do whatever we do, we are going to be going down with our sugar count, with our pressure. Once you have diabetes, the rest of the disease follows that. Diabetes is mother of all the diseases somewhat, right? So once you have diabetes, forget it. You're going to have someone with diabetes going to have obesity. Diabetes, you're going to have high blood pressure. Diabetes, you're going to have stroke. All of these could come from diabetes. So we want to be healthy. We want to be healthy. We want to practice healthy lifestyle. About 10 to 15 million Muslims in this country. If we practice Islam the way it's supposed to be, if we don't cost a dime from the $360 billion this country spent on diabetes by itself, guess what? You are the role model for this country. You are the role model for this country. They would come run to you. They would say, how do you do that? Muslim community, no diabetes, no cholesterol, no obesity. How do you do it? We would say, fasting, Ramadan. Ramadan. By the way, the word the Ramadan came from some interesting, the word. The meaning of it more interesting. Ramadan by itself is dryness. Ramadan by itself, dryness. In a sense, if we have some watery stuffs, if we start heating it up, the water is going to go away. And the stuffs, real stuffs are going to be there. So Ramadan actually is teaching us for last 11 months of dirty we have in our mind and in our body. In the mind and in our body. In the mind, we have jealousy, hatred, we have desires, and all of this in our mind. So we need spiritual cleanliness. So Ramadan is doing it. At the same time, body, we are throwing all the junk in. We are not discriminating what we're eating. All these things we are putting in the body. Body is facing all these toxic agents. And Ramadan is going to clear all of this up. Subhanallah. So, medical perspective, this is something unique. Fasting is something unique that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us as Muslims. This is a dawah point. We can bring it out to the people. If we Muslim communities are healthy, as I said, if we don't cost any dime to this healthcare system, leading a healthy life, that by itself is going to give the message to the another 330 million people in this country to know what Islam is, to know what Quran is, to know what Islam, all these things are. And lastly, I want to mention one thing connecting to the fasting, Ramadan, inshallah. Once I had a patient. The brothers who are there, if you can just pay attention, this is something very important that I'm discussing. If you can just come forward. Once I had a patient who weighs 475 pounds. How big is that patient? How big? 475 pounds, this patient. And when you see patient like this big with consciousness, they have guilty feeling already in their mind when they come to doctors. And then he said, I'm trying to lose weight. I said, okay. And I said, just out of curiosity, I said, what's you eating? What's your diet? What's your typical lunch, for example? He said, Typically I eat a large pizza with 2-liter Diet Coke. A large pizza with 2-liter Diet Coke. And he said he wants to lose weight. And you can see the man, the sincerity on his face. He wants to lose weight, but he can't. Why? Because he didn't go through a system where he can control his desire. He didn't go through a system where he can control his desire. What's the desire? To eat, to drink, whatever and how much he likes to. Contrast to that, subhanallah, look at Muslims. We fast 16, 17 hours, 18 hours a day in even summer, hot summer. We are not eating or drinking anything all these hours. What Ramadan is teaching us? The willpower. The willpower that we can control our desire. This is the most wonderful thing a human being can have. Controlling the desire. If we can have that in ourselves, we want this world and we want the hereafter, inshallah. So Ramadan is a wonderful point where we build our willpower to do whatever we like to do and whatever we don't want to do. We can control it. So this is a wonderful lesson from Ramadan for us, alhamdulillah. So we want to, anything else we want to, any questions by brothers? Any questions, Dawood? Any questions? So this is a serious audience, although there are not many left by now. If you come tomorrow at this time, actually they will be looking at the board because they're Arabic class. They want to learn the Arabic, they want to learn the Quran, how to read, how to understand the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which each one of us should strive to do, inshallah. If we don't understand the Quran, then we don't understand the meaning and message of it. Therefore, we are far away from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who He said He prescribed it to us. Jihad. Dr. Gori, that's your.
No, so really for any emergency department, you don't need insurance. We see everybody. And if you don't need insurance, you can still be admitted. If you need to be admitted on an emergency basis. And the ED staff will tell you how to apply for charity care, which is, emergency insurance.
Any comment on why nutrition is not taught in
So, every medical school curriculum is different. The emphasis is not so much on nutrition, but we'll do it for like a week, right? So it's not enough. And it depends on which medical school you go to, but you're absolutely right. And, Western medicine, if you study medicine in the US, it's also different than when you do medicine in other countries. So, I've known colleagues who've studied medicine in India or in Egypt, and they can look at a patient's tongue and say so much about what their health is, or they can measure the pulse, and just by measuring the pulse, they can say so much about what their internal health is like. Or in Chinese medicine, you can, palpate a patient's feet and palms and tell so much about their internal organs. So, that's just the way Western medicine has developed, where there's a lot of focus on a lot of things, but certainly not all comprehensive. But also, when you go to a hospital, we do have nutritionists that you can consult. So it's not an excuse, but I agree with you. It's not enough in medical school itself. So I just want to thank you, all of you, again for inviting us to, enter your masjid today. And I truly feel a part of this community. And as I mentioned, Kier and I were at CareWell Health, which is just a few miles away. Please think of us as your friends. Today, I also have my business card. I have my cell phone number on there. If any of you are sick, if you think you need to go to the ER, of course, show right up. But if you have any questions, call me. I also especially respond very well to text messages. Sometimes if I'm busy or if I'm at work, I may not be able to pick up my phone. But if you send me a text message, I will, definitely, inshallah, get back to you. And I'm happy to, answer any questions. Or if you want to, just want to ask, hey, I'm having, I need to see an orthopedist. Where should I go? Or I don't know, I'm feeling this for 3 days. Is this something I need to go to the ER for? Please feel free to call me. I really want you to have that kind of a relationship with me and with Kier. Please think of us again as your friends, as your family members. All right. Yes. So inshallah, I would love for us to come back again soon to teach a CPR class to the community as well. Amir and I actually the last time Kier and I came, it was we met with Brother Isa, and he had mentioned that he had been wanting to get a defibrillator for the masjid. So Amir and I have, purchased a defibrillator that we want to give to this masjid as a present. So I have it today, but I have the defibrillator. I want to get a nice a shelf to put on the masjid wall, so to mount it with, and inshallah, at some point in the next maybe couple of months after Ramadan, we can actually have a community session on hands-only CPR, because that's really something you don't need a BLS certification. But what everybody really needs to know is what to do if somebody collapses in front of you, what to do to save their lives, because that's really something that all of us have the opportunity to at least assist with by doing chest compressions. And then if you have a defibrillator, inshallah, which now you will, to know how to use it. It's really very, very easy. It's very straightforward. It's meant for use by lay people, right? It's not meant to be used by just a doctor or a paramedic. It's something that all of you should know how to use. So inshallah, we'll definitely plan that and have that training for the community. Okay.
Any other questions, comments, doubt? Clinic prospect. Actually, so what we want, this community could benefit from is we just purchased a house next to it right there. You've been there probably. I don't know if we can somehow develop a non-profit clinic setup where we could have some help for the community. If they feel something, they could just come in, and could be reference point also. We could just have hotline communication with the hospital staffs. We can somehow, connect them with the hospital, something like that. But there are, logistic involved. We don't know how to go ahead and proceed on this. Inshallah, we can talk maybe later on.
Amir and I live near Princeton, and mashallah, we have they have had, Amir and I have only been there for 5 years, but for the past 20 years, they do have a clinic at the masjid. So that when the new masjid was built about 5-6 years ago, they had that clinic in mind. It used to be the masjid was in a office building, and so it was like a small room which their doctors would use as a clinic. So when they built the new masjid, they were able to build a room with an exam table. And now, mashallah, it's a government-approved clinic, means it's covered under FTCA. So it's kind of like a free health clinic that's federally approved. And we see patients about 2 hours a week on a regular basis. But even in the absence of that, I think certainly talking about what can be done, inshallah, here, or even at least having a call line and online hotline, and also thinking about maybe how we can collaborate with the free clinic at that masjid, inshallah, would be really cool. So I'd be happy to talk more about that.
Inshallah. Anything else? Did you want to say something?
Here, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Kier Kaiser, and I work out of business development at CareWell Health Medical Center, formerly East Orange General. I'm actually an East Orange resident. I was born in a hospital as well. And I'm very much rooted in our community here. So I have done some work with the Masjid in the past. I'm just here as a resource. I'm here as a guidance. I can, of course, share information about what we have going on at the hospital, but I'm also a person of the East Orange community, and so I'm very much aware of different resources. I used to run a family resource uh, center here in East Orange on South Harrison Street, the Family Success Center. So I too am available to the masjid, and you can give me a call as well. I have my business cards as well, and I'm located at CareWell Health Monday through Friday. So if you can reach out to Dr. Gori, you can reach out to me as well. Thank you so much for having us here today. And we're also going to share some. I'm going to share some information with you for the women in the masjid, because we have I have a nonprofit organization that I'm working with, and we are planning a women's health forum. So, we definitely want to make sure that we can share that information with your wives, your sisters, your daughters, so that we can all, be on the track to greater health. Because health is wealth. Ashe. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Brother Umayyad, is there any critical number that you can bring up and talk? Is there any critical number you find the sugar test? Yeah. Can I have that log sheet there? Sawad, can you get the sheet there? Any critical number on the sugar? Okay. 140? Oh, okay. The brother is still here? Okay. Okay, yeah, he needs consult. Whoever has abnormal number, consult with Dr. Gori to go about next step, inshallah.
That's me, 189.
Oh, that's you? Okay, inshallah. So we can, Dr. Gori is going to talk to you. Yeah. Yeah, I think you can shut it off. Yeah. Okay, with that, inshallah, we're going to continue consult with doctors with the abnormal numbers we have. Otherwise, we are closing this program, inshallah. And we hope to have another session in few months, maybe with the CPR, okay, inshallah, and information will be posted. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر فاستغفر إنه هو الغفور الرحيم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.